freely, no ceiling, no roof. Going deep with no stones to entangle my roots like they do.
Waking up tired and waiting for the horizon to appear. Remind me this work is all for love again. Looking ahead, I see hope in the sky. Give me access and I won't be denied. I won't let go, just hold tight to my hand. The world that we knew would return here. Living my dreams without no fear.
Sure that will wipe away all tears.
I hate that my hands can't touch you. My arms and soul hold to the memories and dreams. Know in my heart that I won't let go. Little me every day, hard to be unafraid. Everything is not the same no more. Policies stay the same. They should be ashamed. They should try to hide their face. There is a light that I'm chasing in life. It won't be put out. Thankful I'm alive. Ready or not, I will rise to a brighter day. A world without wars that divide. I'm grateful for all of them.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Elizabeth Nearing. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the curator of ideas programming here at the International Festival of Arts and Ideas. I'm so glad you all are here, and thank you for joining us for Imagine. This is our year where we're exploring imagination. All of our programs explore both the world as it is today and how it can be in the future. And today it's my pleasure to welcome you to both the legacy and future of love as liberation with an incredible group of thinkers, organizers, and artists. This panel was co-created with Raven Amanda Blake. And on it, you'll have Farron Harvey, Disha Patel, Leah Penniman, Rachel Beth Sayet, and Tenaya Taylor and Charline Xu. This event and the festival as a whole is made possible through the generosity of people like you, enabling us to provide more than 95% of our programming free of charge this year. Please consider joining us as supporters with a gift of any amount or support by participating in the Quinnipiac University Arts and Ideas Audience Survey. And your presence here and your sharing this event is support too. So thank you for being a part of this. Throughout today's event, you can ask questions at any time, comment through whatever platform you are viewing this. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can ask questions and our team will see them. So please engage, comment, come be a part of this with us. So without any further ado, it's my great pleasure to pass the mic to one of our panelists, Rachel Beth Sayet, or Akitusu, which means she who reads. Rachel is a member of the Mohegan Nation, and she is going to do a land acknowledgement with us. Hi, Rachel.
Akwai, greetings. Natasois, Rachel Sayet, Natasois, Akitusu. Hello, my name is Rachel Sayet, and my Mohegan name is Akitusu. I come to you from the Mohegan Nation, and I just wanted to take some time to actually do quick smudge as well as this land acknowledgement. get us grounded in this virtual space in a good way. So I would like to acknowledge that the International Festival of Arts and Ideas is taking place on the homelands of many tribes, past and present. Here, we have thriving nations such as the Mohegan, the Mashantucket Pequot, the Eastern Pequot, the Paugussett, the Quinnipiac, and the Schaghticoke. We also have had nations that are no longer with us, such as the Tungus and the Wangunk, and we have some tribal members that have married into other tribes, such as the Nahantic, and have been adopted into other tribes. So I'd like to acknowledge all those people, all of my ancestors, as I have kinship ties not only at Mohegan, I'm also Narragansett, as well as Pequot. And I'm honored to be here today to acknowledge all of my kinships, all of my relations, Tabutni Niayo. Oh, and I would like to pass this on to our first panelist, who is the organizer, and that is Raven Amanda Blake.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that land acknowledgement. I'm so grateful for that, and so grateful for you to be here and for you to have said yes. And I just feel like I'm radiating right now with excitement for this discussion with all these people that I have worked with in some shape or form over the years, and just excited to like be in conversation on a larger platform about things we talk about to each other so much in passing, or sometimes working together if we if we do have the honor and privilege to do so. So my name is Raven Amandla Blake. My pronouns, I use all pronouns, but for the purpose of this panel, we will be referring, you can refer to me either as Raven Amandla, or they, them. And I just want to uplift the importance of this panel to me, and also the power of naming. So the name of this conversation is The Future, the Legacy and Future of Love and Liberation. And I was really inspired to, as a founder and visionary of Love Fed New Haven, a fiscally sponsored project that existed from 2018 to 2021. Ending that project, really thinking a lot about what it means to be in community and what it means to do community organizing in a way, for myself in particular, being a queer, gender nonconforming person that is nonconformist in systems where where we have to operate in systems of oppression and supremacy and white inferiority. And the importance of using language and the importance of naming things. And I would like to acknowledge my mother and shout outs to her for being so intentional for naming me. My name, she named me Raven Amandla. She named me intentionally after a strong Black bird, very highly intelligent bird, and a very independent one. And also Amandla, which is Zulu and Zosu. And since I was born, about a month after Nelson Mandela was released from prison. And so she named me very intentionally with what she wanted, as far as a life that she wanted her child to carry out. And that being said, I'm actually going to start calling folks up. We can have all the panelists kind of join in on the video. And then as I call you all one by one, I think it's just like great when people introduce themselves, because you get the facts about you yourself, especially as things change, life change. So and sometimes we're always in communication and sometimes we're not. So first up, I would like to call up to introduce themselves is Charline Xu.
Hi everyone, I'm Charline. Chinese name is Xiaoling. it means summer is coming. My mom did a great job naming me. It was a preemie, but my birthday is in June, mid-June, coming up. So Xia Tian Lai Ling means summer is arriving. And I don't know how it was in Connecticut, but in Boston, it's been like 90 and then like 40 and then 90 again. And I'm like, I hope summer is coming. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm a first generation Chinese American educator, grower, and creative. Yeah, are we doing the intro, like the full intro that we're okay?
Yes, my apologies. So we're gonna sing your name. You said your name, pronouns, any of your identities that you would like to share, and your life work, and any associations, if any, and then how long you've been doing the work that you've been doing as well. And it's also in the chat for anybody who needs a reference. Thanks, Farron.
Yeah, and I guess my life work would be finding like creative ways to troubleshoot and heal all of our different diasporas on this land, that I feel like really grateful to have such diversity. And I think in some ways feels so daunting because there's so much. It's not a homogenous place here. Passion project is Roots Above Ground. I have like a wonderful partner that just joined the team. Shout out to Shanae. And I've been in the education field for 10 years, growing for 5 years, and doing weird things with my hands my whole life. My mom always says like you're doing something with your hands, and yeah, I think she nailed it. And I want to call and dedicate this to Asian immigrant moms, aunties, elders, and sex workers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charline. And also modeling after Charline, if everybody could just, as you're introducing yourself and sharing your name, pronouns, identities, life work, and after just ending with who you are dedicating conversation that we're going to be into. And next I'm going to call on, and then everybody could like just keep it to 2 or 3 minutes. That would be great. Next, I'm going to call on Tenaya Taylor.
Hi, I'm Tenaya. My pronouns are they, them. I wrote down, so if I'm looking down, that's why. I'm autistic, trans, and I'm Black. I'm a rapper. I'm an artist. I love Hartford. I started this work about 10 years ago because I found a beauty in this city that I've never seen before. After being surrounded by like a lot of death due to, you know, food, diet related illness and, you know, gun violence that is a result of state sanctioned neglect that a lot of people like to blame on, you know, Black people, but that's really not the case. And, you know, I'm the director. I founded an organization called the Nonprofit Accountability Group. We do mutual aid, housing justice. We've been building food pantries around the city under COVID. I'm part of the Neighborhood Grow Plan, which is a multi-state initiative in Boston, Rhode Island, Flint, Hartford, part of the Connecticut Youth Food Alliance. And we distribute seeds and try to feed people as best we can. I also advocate for justice for Zoe Daldell. He was killed by New Britain police. His birthday will be coming up in June. And I, you know, rep the disabled community because I was in a childhood accident and it left me with like some mobility issues and, you know, a ton of other things. So all of that just kind of is what my work is centered around. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And who did you want to dedicate this conversation to?
My friend recently passed, Karen Holland, Evelyn Richardson, and my grandma, Sarah Neal. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And next, I'm going to call on Farron.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation. I love to talk about love. For those who don't know me, my name is Farron. The pronouns that I use are they, them. And the work that I do is very like intersectional. I do a lot of stuff around solidarity work, radically reimagining how we interact with money. I also do food work and really passionate about that. Kind of similar points that Tenaya brought up around just understanding how deeply food impacts our community. And I think just bring so much into, I'm self-employed. And so a lot of my work really sits at the intersections of my identity, which is being Black, fat, queer, and also coming into transness. And so for me, a lot of my work really centers just Blackness in so many like reiterations of what it looks like. Yeah, I think that like captures it. I have a website called farronsview.com if you want to check it out. I feel like sometimes I stumble when trying to capture everything, but I do a lot of facilitation and organizing and movement work since the age of 16. And I also support like nonprofits and individuals. So I do consulting work as well. What else? I think that's it in terms of like who am I or the work that I do. And I really dedicate this conversation. When I think about love, I think about my grandmother who passed away almost a year ago, Daisy Mae Bowden, or also known as Daisy Mae Harvey. This is also just in dedication to like every Black person in the diaspora, and specifically to like Black Americans. I'm very clear about that.
Thank you so much for that, Farron. That was beautiful. And then next I'm going to call up is Disha.
Hey, everyone. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm already learning so much and loving so much, and just really grateful. My name is Disha. It means direction in Sanskrit. The pronouns I like to use are she, they. The identities I embody is I consider like I'm a queer, brown, poly, femme, thin, able-bodied, low-income settler on this island, South Asian, of a Savarna class, Indian, Savarna meaning folks who belong to one of the four Varnas or classes, and an urban cook an urban farmer, also an urban cook, and a network weaver. And my life work, I was sort of, I consider myself to be an earth worker, a citizen of this ecosystem, and really see my perspective as from a caste abolitionist perspective, just recognizing the cross connections between the Black liberation movement and also the Dalit liberation movement in India, and sort of actively working through that through political education with youth of South Asian background, and also just doing a lot of other workshops, specifically again with youth, but also in like food sovereignty and justice work. Along with that, cooking and feeding the mass movements, and also just organizations that are doing this liberatory work, and also the life work of, giving myself injustice and contributing to the healing of people and earth, and focusing on resources that are towards the community and self-sustainability. So I guess one of the other things was how long you've been doing this. And with about 700 half of India's population being like about 700 million, folks that are directly engaged in agriculture, recognizing that I come from this lineage, so much so that my family, I come from a family of agriculturalists and tea merchants, and so much so that my last name also means farmer. But to be very explicit, also means one who owns land. So recognizing the privilege that my family held in that there. And also just coming from an entire string of family that has been in the food industry and being raised in food apartheid neighborhoods and having just positions in this industry that sort of range from being a historical crop researcher, a menu researcher, to a farmer. And I'd like to dedicate this to my Nani, who is just someone that I didn't have an opportunity to really get to know, but I measured the strength and the fragility and the grace of her by having lived a life that marked so many points of history that she had outlived, whether that was colonialism or independence or nationalism and civil war and peace and the illusion of progress all throughout sort of India and South Asia. What I really hold in that sort of first element of love and understanding that is that the value of domestic labor and how much the person who cooks and cleans and, plans for the household is really critically important in that way. So just wanted to dedicate that in that way to it. And also to the forest dwellers in Kandijan village in Kashmir, which is the, currently occupied by Hindu militarist state, where they have axed 10,000 apple orchards, and also to the olive tree land stewards in Palestine as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And next I'm gonna call on Leah.
Peace, family. Such an honor to be here with each of you. My name is Leah Ruth Penniman. My pronouns are Lee, she, and Aye. And Ruth means friend or companion. So shout out to mom and dad for giving me a name that I hope to live up to. I have been farming the land and tending to a racially just food system since I was 16 years old. Shout out to Farron for the tender age of our beginnings. And that was 25 years ago. So if y'all like math, you can figure out what birthday I'm about to have this weekend. I am a Creole, Haitian Creole mother, and I have many other identities, but those are the ones that I'm centering today. I am one of the founding co-directors and also the farm manager at Soulfire Farm in Mohican Territory and Haudenosaunee Territory, also known as Grafton, New York. And I want to dedicate today to Tete, also known as amaranth, which is a sacred plant to many peoples. And for those of us in West Africa, Tete is the first plant that ever grew on earth. So it is the great, 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 great grandmother of all of us and the wisdom keeper whom I believe we should heed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before I go, I just wanted to let Rachel get a chance to say anything else. I know you introduced yourself first. I just wanted to make sure if you wanted to say anything else, and then also dedicate this conversation to someone.
Yes, thanks, Raven, to Butney. I just gave a brief intro of my name. So again, Rachel Sayet, and my Mohegan name it's Rachel Beth Sayet, actually. And so my middle name, Beth, I was named after my aunt who passed away of cancer in 2010, Laura Beth. So I honor her with my business that I'll talk about a little bit as my work, Rachel Beth's Healing Therapies, which is all about healing. And I also, my Mohegan name is Akirusu, which means she who reads. And my ancestry on my mom's side, I have Mohegan heritage. And then on my dad's side, I have Jewish Russian heritage. So I also have a Hebrew name, which is Devorah Beth, which means bee, as many of you know, a busy bee. So it all fits. And I was given the name She Who Reads by my great-great-aunt Gladys Tantaquidgeon, who was our medicine woman who passed away in 2005 at the age of 106. And she gave me that name because I read 500 books in the first grade, which wasn't something I was very proud of as a child. And as an adult, I have been a Native educator for a very long time, teaching Native history in various capacities. I have a master's in anthropology, so there's always a struggle of trying to figure out which spaces I can teach in, because it is not taught at many elementary schools and places like that, and it's mostly taught at the college level, and it's something that many Indigenous folks and others are trying to work through, maybe dismantling some of these systems. And so that's part of the work I do. And I go out and do classroom lectures and things. And then I also do healing work. And I've been working with essential oils since I was about 10 years old. So I started kind of working on selling my products a few years back. And then I got my Reiki certification. And my family, being medicine people, I have other healing knowledge that I encompass, but it's not really for sharing except for at ceremonial times and things of that nature. So with the work that I do in my business in Rachel Beth's Healing Therapies, I keep it to more meditation, exercises, Reiki. Sometimes I discuss some of the other Native concepts that are in line with, for instance, the moons and things like that. So I run healing circles that I've been running for about 1.5 years now. That have really been meaningful for a lot of people during this pandemic. And they kind of started before the pandemic, right before. But I also incorporate the education about the moons, the Mohegan moon specifically. So right now we're in the strawberry moon. And the organizations that I'm a part of right now, I'm on the board of Gadakina, which is a Northern New England Native organization. I'm on the board of directors for there. And then I'm also part of, and they work with different tribes all over the country, supporting them, and also work on promoting proper books and things like that. And then I'm also part of Eastern Woodlands Rematriation. And in terms of the dedication, I dedicate this to both my great-great-aunt Gladys and my my aunt on my dad's side, Laura Beth.
Thank you so much. I think for moving forward, just as a practice, I will raise my hand and then when you see my hand raised, that just means for you to kindly, wrap it up gracefully. And that being said, this is the biggest panel of the festival, and I was really struggling to actually not put all the homies on, honestly. So that being said, there's 7 of us. It's the biggest panel, maybe even ever of the of the festival, especially virtually at least. So we're gonna we have a small challenge, but I think we can do the best that we can, and I think it's going to be amazing. I do have a few questions, and we may not get to all of them. But with that being said, just want to reiterate for everyone to be as conscious as possible, to keep it to 3 minutes would be ideal. No more than 5 as far as responses. And then once again, I'll just put my hand up if you're running over. And that being said, again, Raven Amandla, they, them, for this conversation, but I use all pronouns. I am Black, gendered, non-conforming, queer, light brown skinned, assigned female at birth, transmasculine, small, able-bodied, college educated, born in the United States. And during in March of 1990, and during a brutal winter storm, a month after Nelson Mandela was released from prison. And I want to, my association is Love Fed New Haven, which I mentioned before is an organization that I founded and also ended this year. And I want to dedicate this practice to my maternal grandmother, Elnora Jane Huckabee Gardine, who I have a lovely image of here. And she's on vacation on an island somewhere. I'm actually not sure. But she passed away a couple years ago. And so I'm calling her into, I'm fortunate enough to be living in her house and also continuing a legacy of love. So thank you so much. So we're going to jump right into it. So the first question I'm going to ask is, what is love? And combined with the second one, what is love? And what role does love play in the work that you do? And so we're going to start off with, let's start off with Tenaya.
Okay, I was like, please don't say me first. So thank you. I think first of all, loving yourself. I hope everyone loves themselves. That's love to me. I don't think you can really love anyone else properly if you're not loving on yourself. So, and that means just like loving your body, loving who you are. I love myself in my transness and my queerness. And that way, if you know how to show yourself love, you can probably show it to other people quite easily. So that's what that means to me. I'll keep it short.
Leah, what about you?
What is love aside from the glue and energy that makes all things flow in the universe, right? But I think as it relates to the work, a really powerful shift happened for me maybe 10 years into my work as a soil steward and food justice advocate, where I realized it doesn't work to just scare folks into caring about things. If you gather up a whole group of young people and tell them that the rainforest is disappearing and the polar bears can't hunt and the wildfires are destroying the West Coast, that's important, but it doesn't actually catalyze action. And there's been some powerful research that backs this up, that actually the only thing that makes folks defend and protect something is to fall in love with that thing. We defend and protect what we love. So those hands-on, barefoot, 5 senses engagement with the sacred earth, with beloved community, that falling in love with what is truly sacred is then what motivates us to, at all costs, protect, defend, and advocate for what we care about. So, the way that love shows up at Soulfire is really simple. We try to get out of the way and let the earth meet her people again. Let her people meet the earth. And that means farming together, cooking together, getting nerdy about soil science, exploring both the brutal and noble history of Black and Brown people's relationship to lands, and feeling into that through ritual and ceremony, through song, and then together to do the actual labor, the labor of growing food and medicine and bringing it to the people who need it in our community in a way that is not circumscribed by capitalism. So that's a little bit about love.
Thank you so much for that beautiful response. I loved it so much because just you talking about how love puts people into action and gear. And that's exactly why I named my organization Love Fed New Haven, because I was like, what do I want this to feel? What do I want it to do for the community? Is to feed our communities with love. So I love that response so much. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it on to Farron.
I was actually hoping you would, because I just felt like it was a build-up from Tenaya and Leah. For me, like, love is an action. It's not enough for you to tell me you love me. I need folks to actually show. And this is on all levels and all aspects of my life, right? You could tell me you love me, but Black people are constantly being like murdered by the state. What are you doing about that? You could tell me you love me, but like my Black community, my queer community, my Black queer trans like sisters, they're dying constantly. Like, what are you doing about that? So for me, like, love is an action and love is a constant doing. And often in this current edition of like living in this like anti-Black, fat phobic, transphobic, capitalist society, that means I need people to constantly be interrupting the like internalization of the stuff that they consume, that I've consumed, but also like actually in real time when you are witnessing a like Black person, a trans person being like, you know, violated, what are you doing, right? So for me, like love is an action. And I also believe that like love is the fuel of all of the work that I do. So when I was growing food and got into food, like part of it was personal because I wanted to connect to my like lineage. And as a Black American, I knew that my ancestors knew how to grow food. But the other part of it was I love Black people and I wanted us to live, because when I found out the rates of how fast we were dying due to non-communicable diseases, I was like, what is happening, right? And so I got into food because I wanted to grow food for people because I loved us, right? I do equitable susus where white folks and folks who have wealth, they redistribute money to Black people. And I do that because I love Black people. And I believe Black people deserve abundance and we deserve ease and we deserve luxuriness, right? And in this system of capitalism, the only way we could get that right now is by redistributing that wealth. And so for me, love is literally the fuel of everything that I do. Like me checking in on you is because I love you and I want you here. So how can I support you within my capacity? Because we're not talking about martyrism, because that's a part of capitalism. So within my capacity, how can I support you? How can I love you down? So that when I leave this earth, you know that I loved you and that like I was here for you. So for me, like love is an action.
Thank you so much. And that reminds me of bell hooks because like if you know, you know, and if you don't, Google it, find a bookstore, your local bookstore, not Amazon preferably, and buy some bell hooks books all about love, salvation, to name a few, just to name a few. All right. So moving right along. Thank you so much, Farron. I'm going to pass it on to Charline.
Sorry, that was a lot. Thank you for sharing that, Farron. I guess inherently it's like strong affection. And I think for me, the love that I seek and want to like set the bar as is like, it includes accountability, which is like not being complicit in spiraling or harmful behavior. I think there's something like amazing and something that we like talk about in love is like loyalty. But I think like that can also like, there's just like a thin line where that can be destructive too. And I don't know if being so loyal and complicit and like not wanting better is love, and normalizing like toxic behavior. And I think I see a lot of that in the cultures that I was raised in. And in my upbringing, there's not really a language for love. Like we don't really say I love you. I mean, in English we do, but yeah, I don't know. That was like always thought of a luxury and a distraction. So I think for me, I'm building that and I'm realizing that it's different and it's got to be customized to everyone that I do love. And that's something I think is really beautiful is that it's pretty different and pretty personal with every like love relationship you have with the land, with a person, with a being. And I think it's persistence, like a lot of persistence and practice. Yeah, I would really love to see more love that is like not based on like sexual attraction as well. Like
or romanticized.
Supporting people that you're not just attracted to, you know, like that being a foundation of like a friendship and relationship. Just wanna add that part. But yeah.
That was a beautiful response. Thank you so much. And Rachel, what do you think love is and how? What role does love play in your work?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have the actual definition for love for myself, but I have what I feel for it and how I utilize it, I guess. And for me, everything I do is imbued with love for my ancestors, love for my homeland here in Connecticut, love for my people, my tribe. A lot of the work that I've been doing has been to work on, revitalizing ceremonies and traditional foods and various things that, are part of decolonization work. And here in New England, we've been colonized for a very long time, in Southern New England specifically. And so it can be very, very hard and difficult. But my family has been on this road for a very long time. And so I look to my ancestors for guidance. So there's the love for them, but then there's the love also for, just for the planet, kind of as Leah spoke to, for caring for this earth, our mother, and for all of the living things on this planet and even beyond, for the universe, and sending positive, we want to call it love, right, or energy out into that space, however we want to do that, manifest it, so whether that means, as one of you spoke of, supporting each other, which I always try to do. I always try to lift up other folks in the BIPOC community that I know and other communities, support local artists, and, just that kind of love where it's not just, okay, I'm doing right. I love a person. There's also the mutual support and that reciprocity where we're trying to help each other and build a more loving world. I'm all about trying to make this planet just more loving and kind. And it's definitely, again, it can be a struggle, but if we do it with that intention, it's not as much of a struggle because we know in our hearts that it's so meaningful and we care so much. And I say we because I know all of us do. And we're all kind of in this together. So thank you so much. I love you all. So the button.
Oh my God. I just love all the love that's just there's all the love we have for each other is amazing. And I feel it too. I don't know about y'all, but I also feel it too. But on that note, wait, everybody went, right? No. Yes. Excuse also my attention deficit disorder, but everybody went for that question, right? Okay, cool. So, wait. Okay, go. All right. I was just going to ask, oh, you haven't gone. See, I was like, I know I'm missing. Come on now. You say, interrupt me, please. Please do actually interrupt me. No, Disha, please go ahead.
I know, but I also just wanted to be mindful of my own time, and I knew
we're good.
Okay.
What we will have here is what we will have here.
I'll keep it short. When love came up, love was associated with language. I love you is not an informal vernacular terminology in my native languages. The root love, it's ishq in my native language. And it also comes from Indo-Persian background. And so there's Arabic and Bengali and Punjabi and Azerbaijan and Urdu, just roots to that one word. And one way that ishq comes from the root, the Arabic verbal asak, is to stick or to be around. And that is, so they connected the origin of that root asa. And it's also a kind of ivy because it twines around the tree. So just feeling that sense of interconnectedness, that even though these are sort of one word as a language, and meaning love and how that connects and transcends just beyond diasporas, and how to me that just feels like interconnectedness, and also that we can help each other flourish. And it also means belonging. So just recognizing, again, in the ways that Leah and Rachel already said, is just the tied to the web of all things, and feeling a belonging, not only with humans, but also to the rocks and to the rivers and to ancestors and elder trees and whatnot. So I'm going to end it right there, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And that you actually going last is perfect because the next question I wanted to ask segue into, and I was like, this was also brought to my attention by Charline. So thank you for that, calling me up last week about it, is the importance of language. And everybody uses love, right? But everybody has different definitions of it or different understandings of it. And when it comes to the work that we do, it's very, very, very important, like almost more than anything else at sometimes, to communicate in ways that we're also making sure that we're having shared understanding in the language that we're using, right? And so that being said, I pulled up the definition of love from Merriam-Webster in particular. And I'm just gonna share a couple of the ones that that are up here that I think resonate, especially with the things that folks have been bringing up. And one of the definitions is an assurance of affection, a warm attachment, enthusiasm or devotion, the object of attachment, devotion, or admiration, a beloved person, unselfish, loyal, and benevolent, good of another, such as a fatherly concern of God for humankind, brotherly concern for others, a person's adoration of God, and then a God. So that being said, you know, like what, I might be veering off a little bit, but when it comes to the language piece, I know Charline definitely has something that you want to say about language for sure. But like, what does it mean when you're working, right, in the way that you do? A lot of us have worked and are working in like nonprofits in particular, which we know is also like a machine of capitalism, and philanthropy is like wild. So especially as we reside in like, well, most of us actually reside in the state of Connecticut, which is like one of the most, one of the smallest, but one of the wealthiest in one of the wealthiest nations. So I wonder like how important like you found language to be, and maybe also because of the definition that came up around devotion to God is like, you know, oftentimes we think of love, and I think what is a very Afro-Indigenous thing naturally that comes to everybody on this panel, and that's why I curated this panel like this, is that we are our cosmologies also are included when we're talking about love. We're talking about what is infinite in everything in the universe and everything that is connected, even though capitalism and white inferiority always wants to disconnect us and from each other. And I think it's oftentimes like the white gaze that gets a lot of attention, but when it's actually the gaze of that we have of each other or just ourselves, it's very different. Understanding that we don't have to use certain language to communicate the things that we need to, and we have access to technologies that are beyond, and it's not always verbal. So that being said, that was a lot, 3 minutes. But I'm going to call actually on Rachel first.
Wait, can you repeat the question?
Oh, wait, actually, you know what? Oh, so the question is, how does language, the importance of language, play a role in the work that you do, and also like any philosophies in relation to love as well?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I think my big thing when it comes to language is just, speaking to people in a way that's a common understanding, kind of what Raven's saying. And I find that that is a common language that we can all kind of just speak in. And I personally, with my education, I speak to the general public. I don't use academic language. And, even though I was trained in that way, and I find that it's problematic in multiple ways because, for instance, there's a lot of people teaching Indigenous history, and they are working at a certain level, and they don't necessarily actually, that material doesn't actually ever get to the general public, the books or the articles. It doesn't actually get to the communities and various places where it would be most impactful. So I think thinking about language in terms of, you know, how do you want to make that impact, right? And that's related to love too, right? If you love what you're doing, you want to make the greatest impact. And for me, I saw, you know, this dynamic kind of interplaying, and that's why I chose personally not to get a PhD. And it's basically just, you know, people are in different spaces. And even with food justice work, which I've done some of as well, when I entered that field, it was kind of like, wait, what is this language? Like, I didn't know the different terms. And I did part of Food Solutions New England, which was when my introduction to that kind of world. And then I learned some of them, and and then you're thinking to yourself, okay, wait, so is this the best way to explain this, right? And then get across to other people who might not be in the food justice world or might not be in the academic world, right? So we're all, you know, trying to do similar work and build each other up, lift each other up, work with the planet and the earth, and in a good way. And when we can just kind of talk in a way that we can all be on the same page, I find that to be the most beneficial. But I was just in a meeting earlier today where they were talking about people getting caught up in semantics when they're trying to do diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and how like the academics are caught up so much in the lingo, and the people who are trying to do the work are like, what is this? How is this helping? So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I have to say about that topic.
Thanks so much. Yeah. And I'm going to pass it right along to Charline.
Yeah, language is really difficult for me. I think there's like the formal language that gets really tricky, and like can feel really like snooty, and like we have to just like be so busy defining terms. But I think that as I like enter more spaces with different identities and like just have really different, I have a lot of friends that are just have different identities. I don't really think there's like a language that has ever worked across the board. And I think, you know, like this idea of like BIPOC spaces, and, you know, even in organizing spaces, there's always something that like isn't always safe for everybody, right? So like I find in Boston in particular, there's a lot of like spaces that just like always makes queer folks just feel terrible and excluded. And there's always the identity that's like pushed out. And there's like a whole language barrier for that. And I think I wish there was a way that we could start like practicing how we communicate instead of figuring out like which language is the way, like what's the right phrasing, what's the appropriate way to discuss what we're discussing. Because to me that feels like I don't think there is a right way, in my opinion. And I think for me, there was like some terms that I was looking up when I do mutual aid work. There's just a lot of people will be like, oh, it's like charity. And I'm like, it's just like not like charity. And it's just for me and inside, I'm like, ugh, gross, like not charity. And I get like all triggered, but I gotta like keep cool. And those are some definitions that I think I'm not going to take the time and define everything. It's also a little like it's really Christian, but I think everyone should, who's watching or whoever wants to, can look up the terms and the history and the culture behind like charity, patronage, mutual aid, and solidarity. And for me, if we look up like mutual aid, it's all about solidarity. Like the history, the biggest thing that people know is like the Black Panthers bringing the free breakfast program. Like that's solidarity, that's not charity. And there's a huge difference. And if there's one thing I can just kind of like be annoying about for defining, is that those two things are very separate. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to pass it along to Leah.
Language. So there's a couple levels, right, that I want to address briefly. One is the language justice itself. So something I think we need to ask ourselves in our spaces, especially spaces that aim towards justice, is, are folks' first or preferred languages actually a barrier to entry into our spaces? Do we have ASL interpretation? Do we have Spanish language interpretation? Do we have Spanish interpretation? What about having events that are actually Spanish first and interpreted to English, so that folks who speak English as their preferred or first or only language got to get used to what it's like to have that earpiece in and be switching channels back and forth and really develop the empathy which leads to solidarity. And then to even take a step back from that, we're talking about English, French, Spanish, Portuguese. What do these languages have in common? They're all the colonizer language. And there are so many things that we cannot express in the colonizer's language that we can only express in our indigenous languages. I'm not a linguist, I won't pretend to be, but I will say that in many of the African indigenous languages, the differentiation between kin and non-kin, between what is alive and breathing versus what is manufactured, are palpable in the language. The duties we have to each other are felt in the language in a way that cannot be translated into the colonizer language. And it's why I really cherish the work of Augusto Boal and Paulo Freire, who try to teach us as people to use nonverbal embodied communication as a way of circumventing what colonizer language does to us, using tools like theater of the oppressed, where we can interact with each other in space using facial expressions, rhythm, music, and body language to get across messages that simply cannot be conveyed in the ways that we usually have access to. And to loop it back to love, there's a beautiful proverb in Haitian Creole, which is my grandfather's native language and my maternal lineage, which speaks to love, but you almost wouldn't know it. So I'm curious. I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to let y'all think about how this connects to love. So the proverb is manger cuit, pague met, which means cooked food has no owner.
Wow. Okay. I can't wait to research that after this and connect with you on that. Okay, let me just acknowledge now we're gonna have to have a part 2 or something, like in our own way, whatever that's gonna be. But moving right along, I'm gonna pass it along to Farron. Oh wait, yes. Go ahead.
I think language is interesting. I felt conflicted in naming this because I know that it could perceive negative. And so just naming that, I'm curious if people could sit with this with a neutral tone, but I feel like language is manipulation. Language is like, when I think about Black folks, queer folks, trans folks, I think we use language to get what we need and to try to survive. I think about poor folks, right? And so do rich folks, white folks. I really think language is a tool, and depending on who we're speaking to, we're going to use certain words. I do an equitable susu, and so I'm working with white people in Connecticut who have wealth or some type of, if they don't have wealth, right, they have intergenerational wealth. And so how they spend their money looks different. I am very intentional about each word that I'm using, and I'm intentionally listening to that white person or that wealthy person to make sure they're not going to cause harm to the space that I'm introducing them to that has Black, trans, non-binary folks when I'm talking about redistributing wealth, right? I'm listening, right? One person was like, oh, well, do I get to ask people what they're doing with my money? Oh, well, you can't be in this susu, beloved, because you're not here yet. You have not done the work because this was never your money, right? And so language feels, it feels like a survival tool. It feels like a tool that we have learned to use to manipulate, to kind of extract surviving and getting what we need under capitalism. And I also think language is tricky because Leah said, as a Black American or African American, I can't fully express myself in this language. Even when I think about gender, right? It is so binary, so limited. It's either black or white, and there's just a whole expansion. There's a whole universe of what like gender could be. And so when I think about just language, I just think about how it's a tool to help us like survive capitalism and kind of protect ourselves. And then that means we are often manipulating it. And that's not a negative thing or a positive thing, but I think that is just a statement. Like, we use language to get ideally the things it is that we desire. And when I think about like my work, from equitable susu to growing food to like facilitating, I'm very intentional, because it's rooted in love. And so, right, I think part of it is thinking about, okay, what is the language that I'm using, and is it rooted in love is also like a component of that.
That was so beautiful. And I'm going to pass it on to Tenaya.
Thank y'all, everyone who went already. I'm just like, dang, I don't really got nothing to add. But no, just this thing about language and love. Like, I love to write, and I don't love to speak as much. I feel like I grew up very nonverbal just because of my autism. I didn't speak a lot. Like, I would just loop in and out of conversations, and not picking up a lot of like just words. I can always write it better than I can ever say it, and I hate that. Like, I love it and hate it, but I've learned to use communication tools and designs as a way to help my community, making flyers, getting the word out there, writing grants, designing our website. I've always been better at written communication. And, I grew up, my first language was African American Vernacular English, AAVE. I can't code switch that well. I didn't grow up around white people. I don't know how to like navigate certain spaces without, I'm dark skinned. I'm one of the darkest people in this panel. So I feel like a lot of my words and the things I say, I always have to watch my words anyway, because I'm perceived as more aggressive. I'm perceived as disinterested. And I'm just, with my neurodivergence and like, just the way that I brought up in my culture, we communicated somehow, but there are nonverbal ways to communicate. And I just try to like get that across to people, because sometimes I can't say enough of the work that I do. And it's an excuse for the powers that be in capitalism to kind of minimize what I do, because I can't say it, but I can show you, I can write about it, and I can prove, that it's happening. So just if you don't hear a lot from me, it's like, I love writing.
And for me, I'm like, and I could dance, and we can dance together. Disha, please.
Wow, like everything y'all touched on, I'm just like, my heart is just saying yes to it all. Thank you. Yeah, like I want to focus and think about it in terms of like language and how that is just transferred when we think about that in sort of like non-living beings. And in one instance of just like understanding animals, for example, and realizing that our only association with them, is in museums or in labs, and not in sort of the the natural habitats of these beings, whether they be in the forest or the woodlands and the mountains and all. There is an immense amount of warfare within that language. And there are various classes of animals, and there is at like the same time, perhaps like so much more mutual support and mutual aid and mutual defense. And you see that also in the ways that it shows up with just plant beings, and the way that nothing in our language of this earth and ecology is monocultured or homogenized. And so just thinking about the ways that, language can just transcend beyond what is spoken, and realizing that that wasn't sort of the initiation and the beginnings of it in some way. And also through food, and how much through being an urban grower and a cook has built that way of connection. I mean, there's so much more to say there, but I just want to look at the time.
Oh, thank you so much. I Before we wrap up, wow, I'm also having like a deja vu moment right now. Anywho, before we wrap up, I want to just call on Rachel because I know you said you wanted to share something too, real quick. So I'm calling you, and then Rachel, you might as well also just go into when you share what you want to share, just go into thanking and showing gratitude to anyone that you want to in our group right here, or not in our group, to wrap up.
Tabutni. Yeah, I just quickly wanted to mention, and I was going to wear my strawberry earrings, but I decided to do the wampum because it's more, well, it's the traditional garb of native New England here. So strawberry season is upon us, and our Mohegan word for strawberry is watahamunch, and it actually means heartberry, and it's the gift of love and friendship, which now, as we're having this conversation, I'm kind of like, well, that is the same thing. And so that's kind of awesome. And yeah, so we're in the season of love, of this first fruit of the season that has, this high medicinal value in the plant. And it's also, it's been valued in indigenous communities here in the Northeast and beyond for so long with strawberry festivals, because it's this first fruit of the season and it's just this little ball of magical love. So it's just really exciting. And so, yes, I'd like to express gratitude for my ancestors, specifically for my great aunt that I mentioned, Gladys Tantaquidgeon, who has, I've unintentionally kind of followed in her path with a lot of my work. This is her book here, her book on ethnobotany, folk medicine of the Delaware and related Algonquian Indians. And a lot of the work that I've been doing during COVID has been sending care packages to friends and family, specifically herbs that my aunt helped people with during the Spanish flu. And so I've been channeling her and just trying to follow that path. So I'd like to thank her, and I'd like to thank all of you for having me here today in the festival. Tabutni.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. I'm like, the magic is in the air. Okay, we just had like a lunar eclipse, like, okay, it's radiating. Okay, next, Charline. Thank yous and gratitude in closing.
Yeah, I'm a super behind the scenes person. So super shout out and thank you for behind the scenes people. And Raven for doing a lot of behind the scenes like prep work and getting this together. I know that the glamorous part of like what a lot of people see is like usually a lot of hours and labor of like behind the scenes, and that maybe you like eventually would learn to be able to pick up on it, and it's just really hard to see all the work that goes there. So thank you, everyone, and everyone on this panel for being here and being so warm through this virtual field. A lot of love.
Disha.
For gratitude in closing. Thank you, everyone. Shukriya, Mehrabani hai, and for everybody in the space, and not only being present within the space, but also the work we all and you all individually had to do to just be in the space, not only physically, but also in all the other ways that we embody ourselves. And to all the folks that, that we can't see, and the backgrounders, and Raven, you especially, for organizing this and bringing us in. And Inkilab Zindabad, and those are just like my words too. Both Kashmir and Palestine in this time.
Farron.
I just want to again give thanks for the invitation to be here with y'all. So many yummy people here, so many people that I admire and just love sharing space with. So thank you. Yeah, and I think my message that I feel is really important is hire Black folks. Right, love is again in action. It's a commitment. It is a doing. Pay Black folks. Yeah.
Thank you. And Tenaya.
I'm grateful for everyone on this panel. Thank you for inviting me. I'm thankful for food because I'm connected through most of you through food. The only person I haven't met, well, I haven't met Leah either, but I've copied So Fire. They in my periphery. And I'm just thankful for that and everybody for having me on. That's really it. Thank you.
Leah.
This is really sweet, y'all. I'm grateful for each of you, and most of us have rocked together, and those of us who this is our first time, it's not our last. And I guess I just want to say to each of you, like, how can I love you better within my capacity? How can we love each other better? How can we continue to deepen our collective work? And I also want to thank the ASL interpreters, the folks doing tech, the folks doing all the things behind the scenes. And Ashe to what Charline said, it really takes a strong foundation to put this kind of powerful storytelling out into the world. And I'm just honored and grateful. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to try not to cry right now. Okay. I appreciate you all for being saying yes. But I think this is just a big manifestation of what is to come. I think the future is love, and love is everything. So thank you again for saying yes and being here. This was beautiful, and this will be available for people to. So we're casting spells out here, y'all. And so thank you so much to the International Festival of Arts and Ideas. Thank you to the ASL interpreters. Thank you for everybody who helped putting this together, this really beautiful event. Thank you so much to Elizabeth for letting me curate it. Appreciate it. And so I will close with my name again, Raven Amandla Aswadu, which means Black in Arabic, and in solidarity with Palestine and Palestinians. And love as liberation, and down with apartheid and oppression in any form whatsoever. Yeah. And I also want to close with also shout out to Bold. I also want to close with just saying that I look forward to having conversation with the Arts and Ideas Festival as well about providing royalties for the videos, since they will be streaming for a very long time past our lifetimes. These things and one-time stipends are, I think we could do better. I think we could do better. And thank you so much. And good night, everyone. Bless up. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raven. Thank you all.
Thank
I'm seeing the thank you. Yes, I was just thinking about Leah's question, how can I love you better? And how can we love you better? And paying people for their labor and saying that's a part of it. There's so many ways to love. So thank you all for your wisdom. And I am just here to close us out and say thank you and come on back. We have a survey. Let us know how we can love you better. Let us know what's on your heart. It's at artidea.org/survey. And there's lots more to come. We have beautiful people exploring lots of ideas. Rachel Beth Sayet will be back tomorrow alongside Indigenous writers from all over Connecticut as a part of our Big Read program. And there's all of those events and more at artidea.org. So come on through, and just a huge thank you to Raven for all of their work in pulling together this magical group of people. And thank you to everyone who shared today. Have a beautiful rest of your evening.
Picture me growing freely, no ceiling.